Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Your Intention Matters, the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us on this one. Today, I have Michael McComb. He is SVP of Sales North America at Pitney Bowes Global eCommerce, coming to us from the Bay. Mike, how are things?
Things are pretty good. Thanks a
Great.
lot,
How
Paul.
about those
Appreciate it.
Warriors conference finals? Look out, right?
Yeah, we're pretty excited. It's great to have our three key players back for
Well, we are
sure.
recording this on May the 17th. By the time we get it edited and uploaded, the finals will be around. And so maybe the Warriors will be going for their fourth in like 7 years or something like that.
Not too bad. Not too
Not too
bad.
bad. Well, listen, Mike, I appreciate you being here. Do me a favor, say hi to everybody, provide a quick intro, and then let's get into your story.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
So I'm Mike McComb. I'm the Senior Vice President of Sales for North America for Pitney Bowes Global eCommerce. I've been in the I've been in the logistics space since 1993 and have been in sales or sales management, sales leadership probably since about 1995, 96. Always looking to learn from others and to just really, enjoying what I do tremendously. So I appreciate the time, Paul.
Well, I'm looking forward to this one. And so, Mike, the title of the podcast, as you know, is Your Intention Matters. And it's really built off of really simply my foundation that nothing's given to any of us, quite frankly.
Right.
And most of us in the world of sales and leadership and training and anything under that umbrella, most of us never thought we'd even get into this arena. And yet here we are, by the millions trying to slug it out and make a living and so on. And so with that said, let's jump into your journey. You ready to go?
Sure.
All right, let's go back in time. Let's go back San Francisco State University. I see a bachelor's of business administration operations. And so, Mike, when you were getting ready to graduate and kind of get out there, were you like most of us in that, okay, now I'm going to figure it out. Let's get a job and we'll go from there. Or did you have a set kind of thought around what you thought you actually might be doing, with your career?
Yeah, appreciate that. So I actually had in college a watch company. It was custom made watches. And so I thought I'd actually get into manufacturing. And I was one of the last group at San Francisco State that was actually part of the manufacturing curriculum. And that moved down to San Jose State as San Francisco State picked up the the hospitality industry. So I did interview with a few people that was a little bit more like operations. And so I did have a plan that it would be in operations or manufacturing, and interviewed at it was Roadway Services. And actually, I didn't even know what division I'd be put into. And it ended up, I took a job at Roadway Express.
Wow. Well, what a novel concept. You actually go to school for operations and you get a job in operations. I mean, that's unheard of.
Got to have a plan and work your plan.
And so how long did you give that, I guess, that venture a go?
I was at Roadway for almost 10 years.
Oh,
Started off as a management trainee, became a dock supervisor, dispatcher, operations manager. Had the privilege of starting in Hayward, California, moved to Oakland, California, and then Stockton, California, and then up to Santa Rosa, California, then back to Stockton, and then West Sacramento. So I think within the first year, I may have gone to 4 different facilities, just kind of moving all around, which is a very common, or was back then, in operations.
Mike, what timeline is this? We're in the
This,
90s here?
yeah, that would have been 93, 94.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this, did you go into Roadway thinking you could be there for 10 years, or were you thinking, okay, so this is my job and now, well, let's just go, or were you kind of said this, I'm going to go, I'm going to, run with this as far as I can?
Paul, honestly, I thought I could probably retire from there. My grandfather had worked at Consolidated Freightways for many, many years. My dad worked for United Airlines. Actually, he only worked for United Airlines after the Air Force. So I think still having that attitude that you could work for one employer your whole career was probably how I entered it.
That's so foreign, I think, by today's standard. I mean,
It
really,
is.
and I don't even say that like to disrespect what's going on in the world today, but it just seems like 18 months, 2 years, 3 years. Like you look at a LinkedIn profile and they'll have
Yeah,
8 years under their belt after, college or university, and they worked for 4 companies.
that's right.
And you think, so there's people who are listening and watching who go, 10 years at a company, like, I don't think so. And yet, so what was behind the decision to move on after that length of time? Was it yours or was it theirs?
It was mine. I'd been contacted by a recruiter to to join what was Airborne Express at the time. And after I decided to take on that role, we were acquired by DHL. The one thing I would tell you, in larger companies, so you have a lot of different jobs that you can do. I mean, think about it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you can be in operations, and actually what was happening, I was going to move to Ohio to take on a director of marketing role at corporate. And so even from sales and then sales management, then, there's pathways, right? And so a lot of larger companies where you have a lot of employees, you can do a lot of different things. And you are correct, though. I mean, today's, as I look to hire salespeople now, you do see, some 3 to 4 years, two years at companies is not uncommon at all. I would say within a larger company, maybe for both parties to keep it fresh, though it is good to maybe do different things every 3 to 4 years for sure.
Mike, prior to me doing what I'm doing today with my own company at Store Training, I worked at Xerox for almost a decade.
Wow.
And I had to your point, working for a global organization, when you excel in one role, that usually leads to opportunity for different roles. And so it's usually not 10 years in the same job, but it's multiple opportunities. And when I left, Xerox was all I really knew. I'd worked for a bank before that, but that was really where I was introduced to selling and sales. That's where I got my foundation, and it was a long decision for me. It wasn't like I woke up one day and said, "Okay, I'm quitting. I'm starting up my own business." This was maybe a year and a half, because I had established so many relationships, and there was still a decent runway with the company. And what I'm curious about, in your position, 10 years with one organization, different industry, but I imagine that, and you keep me honest, but I imagine it wasn't the easiest of choices for you.
It's very difficult. It's pretty funny because in sales you have different the Ben Franklin close, where you basically just draw a T and you put pros and cons, and
Right.
it kind of came down to that. And the opportunity, it's kind of interesting. It was more of a lateral position, but there was a thought to when I was interviewing with Airborne to make it a bigger role, and they gave me, here's the plan, 9 months to 12 months, this is what we'd like you to do. And but we need you to kind of start and help us to rebuild our Silicon Valley facilities. And at the time, it's like I ran all of, I think, Northern California, multiple facilities, a lot of reps. I'd started an inside sales team.
Yeah.
As well. And then I actually had met with realtors twice, trying to find a place. I mean, I was looking, outside of the Akron, Ohio area. So it was very difficult. Thank God I have a supportive wife, who I'm sure I caused her a lot of stress during that period. But ultimately, it worked out, and we moved from the sort of Napa area back into the heart of, I guess, the Bay Area.
Were you a dad yet at this point?
I was. Matter of fact, I think my daughter had just been born. My son was probably 4 years old. So young kids.
Still young enough where school wasn't really being impacted, where you could actually make that physical move from one, house to another location.
Yeah, it wasn't too impactful. Exactly.
Yeah. So how many years were you under the Airborne DHL umbrella?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I joined Airborne, and it just seemed, I think it was only like a couple months, then we were acquired by DHL. But I did stay there for a while, and it, things did work out under DHL as well. I took on more responsibility. And at one point was actually running Guam, Hawaii, Micronesia area as well, which is pretty incredible. And
terrible places to have to go visit for work, Mike. How'd you do it, man?
Very blessed. It is funny. So my dad worked for United Airlines, and that was at least once a year we'd head out to Hawaii, and we kind of have to go off season because you get the free flights, the employee discounts. But I had probably already been to Hawaii so many times. And when I got there and I started working with my staff, they were like, "Man, you already know Hawaii." Well, now let's get to business. But yeah, and then again, DHL was growing at the time. Advertising was really fantastic here in the Bay Area. We sponsored the All-Star game in San Francisco, and I was running around, helping with the marketing team and doing all that. And then I took on a director of national account executive role for the greater Western United States, and it was just fun. It was a good time. The company was growing, and moved on from there because I had a friend, a former colleague at Roadway, who called me saying, "Hey, we're looking for a VP at Hub Group," and the timing just worked out.
Mike, I've been a part of organizations that have acquired a company, and I've been a part of a situation where we've been acquired. And so
Mhm.
here you are with Airborne. To your point, I think you said 2 or 3 months into the new opportunity, and yet you're acquired by this global giant. But usually what happens is when there's an acquisition, it usually leads to cuts somewhere because of redundancies and jobs and so on. So at the time, if you recall, was there any sense of like I'm at the bottom here in terms of hierarchy and tenure and like I'm vulnerable? Did you have any sense of that going on once you caught wind that the acquisition was happening, maybe 2 to 3 months into your new venture?
It's a fair statement because there's companies do look for redundancies, but I think when you're looking to pick up sales, frankly that may be the last type of role that gets cut, and that was exactly it. We did have to meet with some of the VPs and explain our roles, and then we work with a company, a consultant, to sort of redo the territories. And so it was, I mean, look, it was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
I will tell you that. And as I look throughout my career of the mergers and acquisitions, you're exactly right. I mean, that's kind of on the, something you got to think about, but also, what your job is. And hopefully you're creating enough value along the way, and your staff as well. And again, I think from a sales perspective, I mean, honestly, that's probably about that would be like the last type of role.
Yeah.
You got to generate that top line revenue to prove to people that it makes sense, right? To merge two companies together.
So why make the move? DHL, global organization, sounds like you had yourself a pretty well established position, some decent opportunity, and so why look elsewhere?
Yeah, and funny enough, again, like with almost all these roles, I wasn't looking to leave, but one of my former colleagues was pretty compelling, and I will tell you, I had these specific milestones to, be like a particular manager, director level, VP level at certain ages, and so this also would have allowed me to hit a VP at a particular age milestone. To be honest, right? So again, I think in the back of my mind, always, hey, have a plan and work your plan. But it just, it part of it as well as I love to learn. I had not really been in the intermodal full, truck brokerage. I dabbled in a little bit at Roadway. This was a way to kind of learn more about like the rail industry and things like that. So, I just wanted to get the full complement, right? So I could now say that I've worked in trucking, I've worked in rail, I've worked in air parcel. So, and yeah, it was good. It was interesting. The economy was actually just about ready to kind of tumble. And so in some aspects, it was good where you've got some companies that are looking to move their cargo the least cost way. And certainly intermodal is cheaper than road. And that was a lot of what we did. And when I joined the organization, there was 4 VPs, and then because of cost-cutting measures due to the economy, we went down to 3. And again, learning a lot there as well.
So is my timing right? If you're talking about the economy tumbling, is this circa 2007, 2008?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, okay. And so was the grass greener for you in the end?
Everything that I've done, I will always value what I've learned from it. And, there's no regrets. It's really, if I wasn't learning something, I'm not paying attention. So because I was able to learn a lot more, and look, even into what I do today, I mean, I can have, I think, more intelligent conversations with people who have supply chain woes, and I can give, hey, this is what I saw, or have you thought about doing it this way? So everything's been a benefit, I'd say.
So was this new venture and this new job, was it another 5-10 year run?
It wasn't. This was more like a 3-year run.
Okay.
Kind of interesting the way that they were doing an acquisition, and it was going to cause a complete change to sales, where they were going to more of an independent business owner model. And I decided to move on, kind of, and it's great, fine, no problem. Then started doing a little bit of consulting. Just some of my passions are also sustainability, and so trying to make more sustainable supply chains. And anyway, so I kind of started dabbling in that a little bit, and then one of my somebody else called. I was actually going to take a job at another company who was doing a lot of freight forwarding in the solar industry. And when I was talking to a former colleague, I said, "Yeah, I'm going to take this job." He's like, "Oh my God, it's one of my competitors." Whoa, time out. Please come over. And then so that was I joined Savva Logistics. Yeah, and it was funny too. You have some loyalties to some of your friends, and as he's saying, don't compete with me. We're
Yeah.
friends.
So did you take a package to move to Savva, or did you electively leave on your own before anything happened?
No, that yeah, I'd taken a package from the previous.
So
Yeah.
you took a package. That's interesting because so how long were you, between roles or between jobs when you took your package? Was it pretty quick, or did you take some
That's pretty
downtime?
quick. No, it was pretty quick. I don't know if it was more than 2 or 3 months. Yeah, I know it's kind of dabbling. And Paul, what you did, right? You took a big risk, but I think you had that year to sort of plan out what you were going to do. And so in doing some
Yeah.
consulting, again, I was kind of just dabbling in it. And yeah, so I think it was a good opportunity to just also think about, what do I really want to do? Who do I want to work for myself? Do I want to, work in a field or an industry that, again, I could learn a lot more. And again, it was great. I mean, Savva Logistics at the time, it was really, that was a culmination of two companies being merged, and put together by private equity. And they were a powerhouse, global powerhouse. I mean, I had fulfillment deals and going around the globe, just like incredible things. I mean, I tell people stories, and just again, I'm so happy to be able to learn and participate, and it was great at the time.
Did you take a leadership role with Savva, or did you carry a bag?
I carried it back, and that was actually something that, it's funny.
Wow.
One of my colleagues at Hub Group, who used to have one of the vice president roles, kind of made this comment. Mike, you can make a lot more money selling directly. You don't have the headaches,
So
and
true.
and I think that sort of stuck with me for a little bit, saying, maybe I should do that again, just go back to that. And it was fun. I mean, I had, again, a lot of Bay Area based companies, but as well as global companies, and from contract logistics. I mean, they're a big powerhouse, and now they've been acquired by CMA-CMG out of France, and it's even much larger,
Yeah.
because they got the ocean component. But no,
And how long did you stay with Savva?
it's probably 2 or 3 years,
2 to 3 years.
again. And it was
Okay.
funny. I got a call from a recruiter, wasn't interested, and he tells me about a company called Nugistics. They're really growing in e-commerce, and somehow he had heard from, I don't know, one of our, maybe like a joint person. I was getting a lot of e-commerce business through Savva, and had the support actually of our president, who was based in the Bay Area, and we were able to change the way that we look at our truck drivers, and doing like light assembly, threshold deliveries, or white glove deliveries, if you will, and kind of started to really pick up, right? So you get a lot of value added services there. And anyway, so Nugistics called. I didn't know who Nugistics was, to be honest, but
Yeah.
had a great meeting with the senior vice president of sales at the time, and he was so compelling. So what do you, at Savva, what are you actually delivering that's e-commerce? And matter of fact, this treadmill desk was delivered by Savva behind me.
Nice.
TVs, I'm telling him a couple, and he's like, okay, so like maybe 10% of what you buy online, your company can deliver. I said, yeah, that's about right. It was, well, great. Stay there, go after the 10% of the market, or come work for me and go after the 90% of the market. And I think I actually blurted out, wow, that's a good close.
That's a good sales guy.
It
So
was.
was Nugistics acquired by Pitney? Did they merge?
That's correct.
They did. Okay.
After, so I was with, I think, Nugistics for about 4 years, and we were acquired by Pitney Bowes. And I mean, again, wonderful. Great time to join the organization. They actually started in 1999, but really, I think we're more known as like a technology company, than doing reverse logistics and then getting into forward parcel. But really, what happened is, at the time that I was brought in, we had acquired a fulfillment company, and also just acquired a company called Tacit Knowledge that was a systems integrator. So they had this concept to build the full suite of, from an e-commerce platform to doing fulfillment, to doing deliveries, and doing the returns. And so it was great. and it was a direct selling role. And I was asked, do you want to maybe think about, management, sales leadership in the future? We'd love to have you. Said, yeah, but this is to sell all this stuff would be great. And yeah, so I did that for a
So
couple of years before getting promoted.
So this is the second time now in your career where you find yourself in a spot where you are part of an acquisition merger. And it sounds like on both times, this is the second time around, as much like the first, you were the acquired versus the acquirer. So any sense of I'm vulnerable here the second time around, Mike, more so than the first time? No?
I'm gonna tell you again, Pitney Bowes more than anything I could have ever hoped to wish for. So one of the things I've done at Logistics, I developed like a trade lane from China to the United States, and was going over to China. I hired a account manager to help support me. And, we were really trying to figure out how do we grow this even more and more. And Pitney Bowes, I think, because of what they were doing with eBay and their international, they really understood what we were trying to do, but we had already set up enough. And rather than say having me continue to fly back and forth between China, they invested. We opened up some offices. We're able to hire people there, and now we've got a managing director. So fast forward a few years, and we're such a much larger company. The revenue is so much more, and the parcels that we handle is so much more. So again, I think it was very fortunate to work in a great acquisition.
Mike, how long have you been in your current role under the Pitney Bowes brand?
So I've been senior vice president of sales, I believe I apologize, either 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so a couple of years. Okay, so so if a couple of years, you essentially have been in your role during the pandemic, and even though here we are in May of 2022, things seem to be a little easier now. People are traveling, businesses kind of going back into the office. We're kind of getting a sense. I think we're past this, but the last really 18 months to 2 years have been really challenging. And so were you ready for how to operate during a pandemic? I mean, remotely, did you guys have to lay people off? Were you growing as a result, or like, how did COVID impact how you were able to really support and motivate and get the most out of your group?
Yeah, 2020 was by far the biggest surge of e-commerce volume that we've ever seen, probably in the world, right? We didn't lay anybody off. We've actually expanded our sales team and continue to do so. I was previously vice president and at Logistics when we had East and West, and so I ran that. And then as again, we continue to grow. We went to 3 regions and then 4 regions, and then I took over as a senior vice president. But when I think about the pandemic and how we had to transition, if you will, is really, really interesting. I think one of my last calls was March, before all the planes really kind of shut down and things locked down. And it was the last week, and I was up in Portland at a very large footwear company. And going to the airport, and nobody was there, and I flew home, and I think that was it. Then everything shut down, and it was exactly a year that I was asked to go to a meeting in Minneapolis, where one of our prospects said, Mike, I want to go with you and your team, but I need to shake your hand. So hopped on a plane, and it was funny. I mean, it was exactly a year to that. So there's 1 year where I really didn't travel, and we were doing exactly like we're doing today, right, Paul? Yeah. Everything was Zoom, Teams, etc. Definitely had to pivot, and you have to teach your folks as well. Look, and the other thing too, I think we have to give so much more to our teams, more flexibility to the teams and to the employees. And I recall one of the early meetings where one of my sales reps, her kids were kind of running in the background, and I happened to meet them before. It's just like, hey, how you guys doing? And that's how we had to respond during the pandemic. And I think everybody was kind of in that same boat. But really, so from March of last year, I actually have been meeting with customers. It was a decent cadence, but I would tell you that since February of this year, when Shop Talk occurred, that I think that's just kind of broken everything. The doors have just been blown off. I mean, I was just at an event in Memphis, last week, and it had the most attendees of ever. Same with Shop Talk. And so I think customers, they want to meet face to face now. They really do, you know.
Yeah, it's thirsty for it for sure. Mike,
Yeah.
you've had a great career thus far. I mean, really, I mean, and what you've shared has been pretty inspiring to hear this. You start off in operations, 10 years. You plan to maybe retire there, and then okay, so and then but you also had a roadmap for what you wanted to do in certain points in your life, and made a really tough decision after a decade of working for one organization to move on, and then you find yourself in a spot where you are acquired, and then you're with DHL, long runway, you make the move, you take a package at some point, so you kind of bet on yourself. I want to keep doing something different. Where I'm at, it's not really getting me what I want. You find logistics, who then becomes Pitney Bowes, and then here you are managing a pandemic, unique time, and so to your point, it served well in terms of from a revenue standpoint for your organization, but we're still battling through this, as a world, and you have to be able to support your people that way. And you're a father and husband, as this is happening as well, raising your kids and so on. And so, Mike, I've got a question for you. With your experiences, I heard you say throughout the podcast on more than one occasion, come work for me, Mike. No, come on over here. Are you looking? I want you to come over here. And so I'm going to kind of put you on the spot here. Sometimes this is a hard question to answer, but like, why you? Because the US has like 350 million people. There's a boatload of talent. I have the privilege of working with some amazing, ridiculously talented salespeople and leaders. And yet people are like, Mike, come work with me. Come on over here. And so what do you think it is about yourself? How do you show up to people that this guy didn't want to compete with you? He says, you've got to come on this side of the table with me. What do you think it is?
I love to learn. I really try to think about, how can I help create value with people, right? And what I mean is, if I'm leading a team, I want to make sure that they're equipped with the best tools and sort of the best stories, the way to look at things. And also keep that keen sense of really, just being inquisitive and wanting to learn, and not pretending that we're going to be, we know everything. We don't. I meet with people who've got 30, 40 years of experience. And if there's a segment of some business that we can talk about that perhaps I can give them more information to help them look around the corner, that's what I want to do. I want to be very collaborative. And so the teams that I work with, I talk about this for a while. There's like this competitive, but you're collaborative, right? And so the sales teams that I've always put together, we do compete, but it's also that we take some pride in seeing the team members, rise to the top, right? It's not that sort of sharking, Schadenfreude, you're wishing bad on people. That's just not how it is. I think that I've just been blessed to work with a lot of people, just trying to be very ethical, be very honest, be very transparent, be very open. Maybe at times it's to a fault, I don't know. But I truly enjoy, and where they make sense, and if it, and I think that's the thing too. I mean, last week I was on a panel, and people were asking sort of what we do, and I kind of gave this, well, this is what we don't do. So let me be honest with you. I'm not going to do everything for you. If you're trying to get furniture delivered and giant lamps or things, that's not me. It's 10-pound boxes and smaller. That's what I go after. And I had people coming up to me after saying, it was just refreshing to hear you. You're transparent, and you're saying this is what I'm not good at, and nobody talks like
No
that.
one does
I'm
that.
just too old. I don't know what to tell you. I'd much rather when we can collaborate and find the best sort of fit where we can both work together. Then it's that sort of 1 + 1 is 3, right? We can actually get a lot further versus that people talk about, well, you're trying to force a round peg into a square hole, and it's just not going to work. So I guess
Mike,
that's it.
last question for you, man, as we wrap it up here. As I said, we're recording this May 17th. Prediction time. How are the Warriors going to do? Are they hoisting the Larry O'Brien in a couple of weeks?
I feel that they are.
All right.
I feel that they are.
Are you happy that Phoenix got knocked out?
I was a bit nervous on them. Look, and Dallas is not they're a great team.
Yeah,
they really are. So there's nothing, and then you still have to get to the East as well. So nothing's going to be handed.
Right about that.
I think though, having Draymond, Clay, and of course curry on the floor at the same time. It's something special.
Yeah.
You know, you don't see, you know, maybe you talk about the Chicago Bulls. I mean, you get these sort of dynasties that occur every so often. So it's going to be pretty rare.
Well, good luck to you. And Mike, thanks again for being here. It was great to hear your story.
I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, everybody, let's wrap up the episode right now. Remember, your intention matters. Why? Because that's the result you'll tend to get. We're out of here. We'll do it again next week. And for my guest, Mike, let's go Warriors.
Go Warriors.
Thanks, everybody.